Good evening, Bahujan scholars and friends. Welcome to Bahujan Literature YouTube channel. Since the inception of Bahujan Scholars Union, it's been our persistent attempt to continue academic discourse every week. Tonight, Mr. Palash Biswas will present his talk on selected topic. Mr. Palash Biswas completed undergraduation in English from Krishnanagar Government College in 2006. He completed post-graduation in English literature from Indira Gandhi National Open University in 2018. Currently, he is an assistant teacher and at the same time pursuing PhD in Department of Adivashi Studies, Vidyasagar University. His research area is the literature and culture of tribals or Adivashis. Besides tribals and Adivashis, he has an interest in Dalit studies, in cultural anthropology, and of course, Buddhist studies. The topic on which Mr. Palash Biswas will speak tonight, entitled Myth and Tradition of Banam in Santali Culture Astai. And this title uh, is situated within his own area of study. So right now, I would like to request our presenter, Mr. Palash Biswas, to deliver this talk. Palash, you may present you.
Thank you, Jyoti, and uh, thank you all the viewers who are presenting in this YouTube channel, it is online platform. Now, as my today's topic is myth and tradition of Banam culture or Banam instrument in the Santali culture, I would like to share my screen so that you can understand what is Banam and how this instrument makes such an orientation of the Santali culture regarding their myth and tradition for a long duration. Now, as we know that many tribes, many Indian tribes, have a rich and diverse repertoire of material produced, and among them, the Santal artistic heritage is not only little known but also reveals deeply existential im- imperatives through its mythology and history. So, my purpose of this presentation is to make you understand about the subjectiveness of this particular instrument, that is Bana. And this subjectiveness was shaped primarily by the cultural memory of the tribe, their migratory past, and their turbulent relationship with the colonial states. So, at the same time, this particular presentation will make you understand or familiar with the very traditional culture of this Banam instrument. Now, this is very, very influential in perspective of tradition and culture. Before start with the main content of this presentation, that is to show you Banam. Now, let me conceptualize in a brief what the Santals and what was the state during the colonial period. This will help you to understand about the Santal people. Now, the Santal are a Munda ethnic group and they are native to India. And you know that Santals are the largest tribe in Jharkhand state of India in terms of population and are also found in the states of Assam, Tripura, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and West Bengal. And they are the largest ethnic minority in the northern Bangladesh's Rajshahi division and Rangpur division. And they have a sizable population in Nepal and Bhutan also. And the Santal people speak Santali, and that is widely spoken language, and that language is among the Munda languages. Now, if we try to understand the etymology of this particular term Santal, now Santal is most likely derived from Bengali Exoni, and the term refers to inhabitants of Sound. Now, Sound is actually situated in Silda Pargana, and nowadays it is Silda, Midnapur region of West Bengal, and the traditional homeland of the Santals, as it is located by the anthropologist, that is the Jungle Mahal. And these anthony, known as Hor Hopon, and the meaning of the Hor Hopon is the sons of mankind. So we can relate how these people have been inhabited all the natural settings of our surroundings. And if we talk about the very origin of the Santal people, then we get an linguist that Paul Seedwell. What is, according to this particular linguist, Paul Seedwell, Austro-Asiatic language speakers probably arrived on the coast of Odisha from Indochina about 4,000 years ago. And the Austro-Asiatic speakers spread from Southeast Asia and mixed extensively with the local Indian populations. And due to the lack of significant archaeological records, the original homeland of the Santals is not known with certainty. The folklore of the Santals claims they came from Teheri, which scholars have identified as Ahuri in Hazaribagh district. From there, they claim they were pushed onto Chotanagpur plateau, then to Jhalda, Batkam, and finally Sound, where they settled for good. This legend, which has been cited by several scholars, has been used as evidence that the Santals one has a significant presence in Hazaribagh. And colonial scholar Colonel Alton claimed in Chai there was a fort form occupied by Santal Raja who was forced to flee when the Delhi Sultanate invaded the territory. Now, if we look at the colonial construction of the Santal people, because tribe, the very term tribe is a colonial construction, colonial term, then we can find that in the later half of the 18th century, the Santals entered in the historical record in 1795 when they were recorded as the Swanters. And during the Bengal famine of 1770, the drier western and the southwestern parts of Bengal, especially the Jungle Mahal regions, were some of the worst hit areas and were significantly depopulated. This depopulation resulted in a significant loss of revenue for the East India Company. Therefore, when the permanent settlement was erected in the year 1790, the company looked for agriculturists to clear the lands, and British officials turned their attention to Santals, who were being pushed out of the lands on the Chotanagpur plateau by newer immigrants and were ready to clear the forest for the practice of settled agriculture starting in 1790. Large number of Santals from Ramgarh and Hazaribagh began to migrate into the permanent settlement regions like the Jungle Mahals and the Rajmahal Hills, sponsored by the landowners and the British who were desperate for labor. And under the British direction, Santals took loans from non-Santals moneylenders to buy iron tools, seed, grain, and oxen and individuals and families rather than the groups as were their custom of working the land. Now, after this period, now Santals make their existence and they are well-known tribe in Indian continent. Now, let me talk about myth and tradition of Banam. Because every Adivashis or tribes have their particular tradition and mythological orientation. And this presentation is going to be very much interesting when I show you my screen, or I will share the screen. So, with the permission from our host, Mr. Jyoti Biswas, I would like to share my screen. And please give me just a few moments as to prepare my screen.
Okay, Palash, you may take your time, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Is it visible?
Yes,
Jyoti,
it
is
is
it
visible.
visible on the screen?
Yes, it is
You can
visible.
find Banam. You can find
Mhm,
out. I think, hope it
mhm.
is visible.
Yes, it
Now,
is visible.
uh, oh, thank you, thank you. Now, all the viewers, I request to all of you, please look at the screen very carefully what I'm trying to say. Now, here we can find the instrument Banam, and here is the parts of Banam. Just look at the structure of the Banam, and you can resembles this particular instrument with sarangi also. It is like a sarangi, but it is not sarangi like because this particular instrument has own its orientation. And as we know that the Santals keep close to nature, and as a community, they may be seen in the context of their environment, ecology, the supernatural, and the beyond. And music and dance form an inseparable part of their day-to-day life. And one of their most revered articles is the Banam, a musical instrument. And you can find that this particular instrument reflects the whole magnetic relationship within itself. Although the instrument is always shown in a female shape, I will show you another Banam that is the shape of a female. It can only be played by a man. So only the Santal men can play this particular instrument. And if you look at the structure, then you can find out the anatomy of the human being is conceived by the Santals in the various parts of the Banam. Now, this is the head, that is the bohuk, and now this is ear, that is the lutu, and here is the neck, that is known as hotok, and here is the leg, that's the stomach, or tail seal, that is the string made by the fiber of the palm tree. And here is the saddle, that is made by the skin of the horse. And this is the uh, uh, toad harda, that is the skin of monitor lizard. Now, you can find the structure. It is very much, resembles the human anatomy. So, how Santals through their Banam, they are connecting the human anatomy. And the Banam is made of single wooden log. It is not the parts that were collaborated, but rather it is made by a single wooden log from the Gulanj Baha or Gulasin tree. Banam is only made from Gulanj Baha or Gulasin tree. And it is small and delicate. It is often planted by the Santals near their house on account of its pretty fragment flowers. And that flowers also used by the Santal as their ornaments. And the branches of that Gulant Baha or Gulasin tree are slender and very fragile, and the wood is extremely soft, light, and easy to work with. That's why they can easily carve out the instrument Bana. Now, here you can find that it is the horse tail hair that is the Saddam Chower, that is the bow. It is played with a bow like the sarangi, like the violin, and it has a it is made from horse's tails hair. Now, the single string Banam, it is the kind of pattern of the Banam that is known as Dhrodo, Throdo. Banam comes from the Santal tribal community of central India, particularly what is in the modern state of Odisha. And alternatively, it is sometimes known as the Santali Banam. And it is also related to the Sarinda and Saringi. The Chodabanam has a skin covered resonator and is played with a bow. And this well decorated Chodabanam features elaborate anthropomorphic and zoomorphic curvature. These are the particular two terms you can check after my presentation. That is the anthropomorphic and zoomorphic curvature. Well, I will show you after my presentation of this particular, I will show you something about this thing. Now, this particular Banam is very much sacred to the Santal people, and that bears a tradition, a culture, a myth, and it has a particular story that, according to legend, at one time there were 7 brothers who conspired to kill and eat their sister. But the youngest brother was so overcome by the guilt that he could not bring himself to eat his portion, and he uh, buried it in an anthill. And upon the spot, a beautiful tree grew. A stranger passing the tree hears a beautiful sound emanating from it. He cuts a branch of the tree and fashions the first Banam. So the Banams or the Banam of the Santals is well represented by the artwork on the instruments. And in many cases, major portion of the work goes on to these elaborate carvings. Human figures are an especially important motif. And it is interesting to note that some of the most elaborately carved Banams may be the crudest from a purely musical standpoint. Now, the string that I was talking previously, the number of string of this Banam varies. Sometimes we can see a Banam has a single string, or sometimes it is of 2, 3, even 4 strings. Now, let's talk about myth of the Banam. The myth that I've mentioned in short. Now, let me share the story or the legend elaborately. Now, every tribal people or every community has their own kind of myth, has their own kind of mythological origin. And there are various stories on the origin of the Banam, which are mostly related to the bongas or spirits. And one such is highly symbolic, and the story about Banam is like that a long time ago, there lived a family with 7 brothers and 1 sister. The brothers used to hunt in the forest for a living, and the sister grew vegetables and collected firewood. One day, when the sister was cutting vegetables, she hurt her finger and dropped a blood pail on the vegetables. Her elder brother saw this. On that day, the vegetable curry tasted very good. The elder brother told his other siblings about the incident, that they wondered if her one drop of blood had made the curry so delicious. If so, how much more delicious her flesh would be. So one day, the brothers killed their sister and cooked her flesh. Everybody got their share of flesh and ate it, except the youngest one. He was very fond of his sister, and he became very sad about the killing of the sister and the incident which followed. So he buried his share of flesh in the backyard of their house. Over the years, a gulaj tree with many flowers grew up in the place where the flesh had been buried. One day, while walking past a tree, that is the Koimer Jugi actually a member of a clan who walk around the villages begging and singing, like the beggars. That particular person, known as the Koimer Jung or Koimer Jugi, got attracted to the tree. He cut it and made a banam from it and baked while playing the banam. One day, the Jugi got to know the seven brothers who were married by 10 and lived separately. As the Jugi played the banam, the brothers were shocked and puzzled at its melody. The sound resembled their sister's plaintive voice. They bought the banam for the Jugi, but none of the brothers could keep the banam with him at night because from the banam emanated the sound of their sister's cry. But when the banam was handed over to the youngest brother, it stayed calm. And since then, the banam stayed with the younger brother. This is believed to be first, uh, the first banam of the Santas. This is the legend. This is the mythological story about the banam. And this story must be understood on a highly symbolic level. I would like to draw all your attention, please, that the eating of human flesh here is symbolic of how deeply the musical instrument becomes the essence, the soul of the human being who possesses the banam or who is possessed by the banam. So this is the thing I'm trying to say here, that how this particular instrument is connected with the human soul. And traditionally, the banams have human faces, faces of the mask of animals, birds, and sometimes of the abstract figures of the bongas. Bongas is a Santali word meaning spirits. And the artisans, they craved all these spirits, all these abstract figures in the body of the or in the configuration of the banner. Now, now, if we talk about the contemporary days, then we can find out that these stories is also being depicted in the parts of the Banam instrument. And uh, they considered it is very much sacred, and they related their their ancestors with this kind of musical instrument. So to the tribal people or to the Santal people, Banam is not only a musical instrument that makes music and gives you joy, but it has also a great role in creating the ambience to connect human souls with their ancestors and spirits. And that's why it is so sacred to them. And the songs that go with it gonna help us to understand the deeper meaning of the spiritual and the religious life of the Santal community. This is how Banam has the kind of cultural and traditional orientation with their day-to-day life. Now, I would like to show the images of Banam. You can find here in this particular section that there are various kinds of Banam, and here is the uh, picture of the Banam. And as you can find from this picture, that the Banam uh, is very old, and it is also a traditional instrument. They are being generation after generation. And here is the making of Banam, and Banam is made out of a single log. You can find from this picture how it is made. And the mythological story that I have just shared with you, this is the shape of the Banam. Some considers that, as the myth or the legend goes, that Banam has a deep association with female. So they tried to carve that myth or legend through the Banam. And if we look at this particular orientation of the Banam, then you can find in the head there there is a symbolical orientation of the artwork because the artisan, that is the Barkatudu, in his word, I'm quoting from his word, and you can find here that I believe the Banam is very special and sacred instrument. When we welcome or greet any guest with great respect and honor, we close the right hand to make a fist and greet the guest by moving it to our forehead, and we say Johar to them. So the artisan depicted the sign of Johar on his Banam. So Banam is also symbolizing their movement, is also symbolizing their unity. And through this sacred musical instrument, they are reflecting their own tradition. They are continuing their tradition. And that's very much awesome. And now look at this particular Bana, this particular Bana. Here you can find a skull shape you can find. And here you can find a open shape. So uh, as you know that Santal people, they have a deep beliefs in their spirits. They believe that their ancestors are living within them. And that's why this particular orientation of the Bana, they try to depict the spirits, the skull, the openness through this particular one. And now look at this structure. This is another formation or structure, but it has no particular structure, traditional structure, but it has been oriented changes over the ages. Now, this is very interesting. You can see the human figures. You can see a woman figure. You can see the animal head. You can see a female head. So uh, here, actually, this orientation is a traditional way that we are always happy to hear the stories of our grandfathers and the grandmothers. We are always craving for their stories. And in our childhood, we always try to we always try to have some stories from our grandfathers. So look at the Bana, the depiction of the old man and woman. Actually, they are connecting to the next generation. They are celebrating their ancestors like this. And now you can look close look at this particular, and you can find how beautiful the artwork, how beautifully it is carved, and it is so prominent, it is so symbolic, it is so lively, isn't it? It is so lively. It is just a musical instrument. And I think many of you are considering other instruments. And I'm sure that you can't find any instrument in any community which is bearing so many symbolical significance, so many traditional orientation, so many mythological legends. This is Santali culture. Now, look at this structure. Here you can find the face of Rabindranath Tagore. Here you can find, and in this particular Banam, there is a gesture of dancing something or someone. Here you can find also some tribal people. They are dancing. As you know that the dance and the music are the inseparable part of Santali day-to-day life. So are depicting their culture, their tradition, their day-to-day life through this particular instrument, Banam. So Let me share something, another thing. And here you can find also that here is the face of the artwork. It's very, very awesome artwork, and it's a wooden cave artwork. And the artisan is talking about this particular in a workshop, and this workshop was organized in the year 2018. That the art I depicted on the Banam reflects the dancing figures of the Santal women with earthen pots on their heads. This is one of the modern dance forms of the Santals, often play at public functions when hired by government departments, political parties, and Hindu puja committees to entertain their guests and participants. And the front face of the Banam is the portrait of Rabindranath Tagore. Since I did not go to school, I do not know much about Tagore, but I heard that he was a great singer and poet who also loved our music. So how definitely they are in their consciousness about the culture. And if we try to compare their culture with the other culture, then we can find out that we did not maintain our culture, whereas they are trying to propagate their culture through this banner. And you can find all the uh, movements of the dance. There are so many interesting banners forms also. Now look at these types of banner. Now look at this. Have a close look at the banners. This is actually uh, through this banner, the artisan, that is the Shamasundar Mandi, is trying to retelling the story of Dashai. And you know that in Santali culture, Dashai is one of the important festivals. And through these uh, banams, the artisan tried to the tradition of Guru and his disciple in the forehead of Banam. If we talk about this is the forehead of Banam, then they are depicting the Guru Shishya culture. And the Dasai festival is depicted through this particular form of Banam. And now look at this particular fantastic creation. Just look at this. As the myth connects woman with the origin of Banam, so the artisan has made the Banams in the shape of woman. And it is Prabhat Bagdi who is talking about this particular piece of art. It is not just an instrument, but a piece of art. Then, in his work, he's talking about that the story of how the first banner was made has also fascinated me. And the first banner was made from the tree under which the sister of 7 or 5 brothers was buried. Therefore, I feel the Banam has a connection with a woman who has the power of the spirit, yet she sings like a common woman. And in my Banam, I have depicted a Santal woman with all her qualities of physical strength and attraction and her connection with the nature. I have also used the creative freedom in decorating my Banam, which has given it a different look at than a traditional Banam. Just look at the structure, just look at the orientation of the Banam. How beautiful it is. How beautiful. And now here you can find a closer look. This is one string Banam. Now look at the face, look at the artwork, how expressive the face is, how bold it is, and how tranquil the face itself is. This is art. This is the creation. This is the cultural tradition of Banam. And now you can find another kind of formation of Banam. It is also connected with the woman figure, as because the belief, the kind of sound that Banam produces, it is very much associated with the feeble cry, the urge, the pain, the pathos. And if you heard the sound uh, of Banam, then you can relate the sound with a toad, the kind of sound they believed that toad is so ancient like them. And that's why in Santali culture, toad has a deeper association with their traditional cultural orientation. They consider themselves as primitive as old, and that's why the very sound of Tibanam is associated with the sound of a toad. So how they are related to the nature, like, isn't it? No? How they are interconnected with the deep-rooted nature. And now it's a fantastic, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Just look at the structure, look at the carvings, look at the uh, fabrications, designs, his proportions, everything, everything. You can find here so many uh, pictures, so many flowers about the animal. It's an elephant. It's a floral conception. So a story or many stories come up from the Bana. And here uh, in this particular Bana, the artisan tried to depict the story related to the myth of Bana. Just look at the structure, just look at the designs, just look at the artwork of the artisan. And now it is another type of Bana. And here, Shokal Soren, behind this creation, he's talking about his experience that I lost my parents in my childhood. But since I grew up in a joint family, the love and care my parents could not give me were in many ways compensated by my grandparents and other members of the family. I have never been to school, and thus I had enough time in my childhood and adolescence to wander around our villages and experience the various cultural traditions of our Santal life. I learned playing various musical instruments and dances along with our village cultural group, and my interest in making banams developed recently when I attended workshop at Kukwa Banam in our village. So the different kinds of banams have different kinds of story, have different kinds of tradition, have different kinds of culture, have different kind of thoughts, have different kind of principles, have different kind of ideologies, and have different kind of uh, uh, their artistic views. And now look at these types of banams. Just look at this. And here the artisan actually uh, he tried to depict some figures of animals, and he tried to depict that animals that is mentioned in their Chantal creation myth, like the lendit. Lendit is the artwork, like the mugger, crocodile, and the yak hako, that is the prawn. These are the animals associated with the Santal creation myth. And through this banner, the artisan tried to depict these here you can find all the images. Yes, uh, this is the prawn that is Isak Jacob. You can find out if you uh, look at these very closely, then you can find the cravings of the animals in the Banam. And now look at these art. Through this Banam, actually, the artisan trying to depict the Santali lifestyle, the Santali cultural nutrition. Now look at this, a beautiful piece of art. And here is uh, Banam, another type of art. Just look at this. Just look at this. So this is not just an instrument, but rather it is carrying the very tradition, the very culture of Santal people. So I think I have no more types of Panam to show. Just let me check. Oh yes, here this one again. Once again, there you can find a different type of orientation. It's also the here these are the uh, believed as these are the bongas or the spirits, and the artisan tried to depict his grandfather through this banner, as because he was very much associated with his grandfather. It is very, very cyclical. And look at these banner as if the grandson is riding on the grandfather. So you can find the communion of generation. How beautifully that is depicted through this instrument. Well, now here you can find at a glance the various types of columns. So, with your permission, I'm stopping sharing the screen. So, I hope all the viewers can relate what I'm trying to say about this particular instrument. So, in short, what we have seen various kinds of banams. So, in short, we can say that the many of banam makers depict women figures in their banams because they believe women symbolize music, and some depict the abstract face of the guru, that is the spiritual guide who reminds ancestors and the spiritual way of life. And the banam is also associated with the power, and that power comes from the mouth of human beings. So the depiction of the hollow mouth of the skeleton at the bottom and a frog on the top of some banam symbolizes the power and the originality. And as I have said already, that frogs have been surviving as long as the Santals are in this world. So maybe they are older than Santals, and the sounds resemble the sound of Banams. And the same sound Santals believe was also that of their ancestors. How they are connecting the nature with them, with their tradition, they are carrying with them. And the art of some Santal artisans depicted on the Banam reflect the dancing figures of the Santal women without enforced on their heads. And this is one of the modern dance forms that the Santal women play at the public functions and other ways. And in some Banams, artisans have tried to retell the story of Dasai, that is the important festivals of the. So, in short, or in conclusion, that Banam plays an important role in the Santal cultural heritage. However, the making and use of Banam is declining among the Santals and is threatened by extinction. Now, the modern generation or the new generation of the Santali people, they are not very much interested in making of Banams. They are buying some modern musical instruments like the guitar and like other instruments. And the workshop that was held in the year 2018, and their main objective was to promote the Banam culture and and sustain it through the Santali people. And this is uh, here I'm concluding my presentation. Thank you very much.
Uh, am I audible, Palash?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Yes. Thank you for your brilliant presentation. Uh, I have a couple of observations. I mean, some of the ideas that I want to share with you.
Yeah, sure.
That while uh, I mean going through your presentation, the very musical instrument uh, known as danka uh, that Motuas actually had here. So I just want to, you know from you whether do you find any kind of a concept of cultural resistance that uh, the Santhal people are actually showing by playing the banam, because in most of the cases we find in the case of Motuas that beating the danka is not only a part of their ritualistic practice but also an essential part of raising protest, and in this way showing their cultural resistance and some sort of a Protestant mentality. So, in this particular sense, if you kindly, of course, I have many other issues that I want to share with you. First, if you kindly focus on this particular concept of cultural resistance, if you find any among the Santals while using the instrument Banam.
Yes, Jyoti, that's true. That's very much true. If we consider that the dangas of the Motuas, that it is not only a drum that is beaten in a particular ritualistic orientation, but rather, as you say, that yes, this is the cultural resistance that that creates the existence of the people, that also that danka and their procession also is a symbolic procession of how they originated and how they revolt against the Brahminical society to establish them as their existence. And in that way, we can find out the these kind of cultural instruments, these kind of cultural uh, musical instruments, as they have always carrying their tradition. Yes, that's very good point you have asserted that yes, a close observation will certainly reveal that these kind of people, they are carrying their resistance, they are carrying their traditional ways, they are carrying their cultural views through their day-to-day life, through their ritualistic overview. That's true. And thank you for putting these kind of ideas. Thank you very much.
Okay, so another some couple of issues that I want to highlight, that very
Yes.
often we find, that uh, you know the Santals who live in rural areas and hardly have that sort of access to urban facilities, uh, has some sort of a cultural conflict to that of their Santal folk who migrated to city. And in fact, there are many Santals who got government jobs in the scheduled tribe category, and then they migrated to some cities, whether Kolkata or Durgapur, Asansol, and because of their job, they have to settle over there. So they have been staying over there, and they hardly come back to their village to participate in the rituals. And of course, it is sometimes seen that they asking their brothers who are living in the village to send the videos because they are unable to go there to celebrate the ritual. So, in this particular sense, we see some sort of a geopolitical, or ecological, and at the same time cultural uh, differences. So, what is while reading the, the history and its practice of Banam, do you find any kind of a debate, any kind of a tussle or even rift, uh, or even a
Yes, yes. I
miscommunication
yes,
between the urban folk of the tribal society to that of the rural folk of the tribal society?
yes. Actually, I made a field work in our nearby Kullani, in West Bengal, Nadia. So there I can find that the Santali people, they are, with the help of modernization, with the help of urbanization, they are leading a modernized life far from the traditional Santali lives. And there I couldn't find any Santali linear house. All they were double-storied or three-storied buildings that is constructed, or we can say pakka, but I couldn't find any Santal orientation. Uh, any passenger or stranger, if he go there, then he will not be able to recognize that this particular area is Santal oriented. And my colleague is a Santal, Damodar Hemram. I talked off and on about their culture, and I find out that uh, he's only aware of certain festivals like Dasai and other things, Baha, etc., etc. But he has no deep knowledge, deep-rooted knowledge about their own culture and tradition. And this thing, as in my study, I'm trying to say that this is the displacement caused by the urbanization, globalization, or the modernization. And here I can find identity crisis in respect of the tradition and in respect of the cultural overview. And when I urged my colleague to tell me something about that culture, he didn't able to tell me about this. Rather, she suggested me to go there, and I had chat with two older persons aged about 75 plus. They are talking about how they displaced there and how they formed this Shidu Kanu, Bishidu Nago. They are aware of the fact, but the new generation, the new kind of people, they are not aware of the fact. And I heard not a single word about this Banam instrument from my colleague, who is uh, who is a person of who belong to or who belongs to Santal community. So this is the crisis that I find out through my research, through my field work, that the cultural orientation, the tradition of the Santals, that is very much lacking. And that's why, as I have said or mentioned, the purpose of this uh, workshop in the year 2018 was to award the Santal people more about their own traditional culture. One thing is very positive that they are also trying to restore the traditional cultural orientation, but many other cultures that are lacking, but they have no urge to retell their tradition or the culture. So this is I can find during my study, but I'm studying also. This is only the beginning of my study. I hope in future, with this particular orientation, that is the identity crisis of the tribal people or the Adivashis in India or Adivashis in our periphery or the surroundings, I can put much more informative presentation. I hope so. Thank you, Jyoti.
Okay, thank you, Palash. Then I have some couple of issues that I want to share with you. Perhaps
Yes.
most of us know about toe nuts, and toe nuts not only among the Kurmi community but also among the Santali community and the other tribal communities have been very popular, and it has been an essential part of their cultural expression. But interesting fact is, nowadays we see the depiction or even you can see the portrayal of Hindu mythology through the performance of show. But if you just focus on the very making of show, the elements, natural elements, with the help of the show mask is being made, then all these elements are related to the rural Santali locality. Okay, but interesting fact is whenever you see any show performance, then very often you see the very traditional Hindu, in many sense, Hindu mythical story like Asur and Durga, and how Durga is killing the Asur. But interesting fact is the very mythical story of Asur and Durga is killing the Asur is not a part of Santalim folklore.
Yes.
And interesting fact is, but whenever we see the show performance, we very often see this Brahminical, I would like to say, interpretation of culture through the show performance, as if we see that show originated out of this mythical heritage. And while watching the show dance, this recurrent image of Durga and Asur, and Durga is killing the Asur, makes us very much, I would like to say, intellectually rigid and resistant to say that Brahminical hegemony has swallowed this very practice of Chou Nach. Because one thing that I
Yes,
want to
that's
make
true.
clear, that the person who is responsible for making Chou Nach, globally popular is the founder, who you can say the pioneer of folklore study of modern West Bengal, that is Dr. Ashutosh Bhattacharya. Dr. Ashutosh Bhattacharya in 1970s and 80s toured around England, America, and other places, and he, along with him, carried the Chou team, and he performed in opera house in Sydney. He performed in the different cultural centers in London, and in this way he popularized the show dance of West Bengal, which
Yes.
is fine. But interesting fact is that in all presentation you find the same Brahminical, I mean the portrayal or presentation of Brahminical myths to show dance. Now, this is an observation to me, and this observation is quite globally acceptable. If you ask anyone, they will actually recognize the fact that through Chou Nach, they are actually showing this Aryan, non-Aryan, or even the Brahminical, non-Brahminical cultural fight, where you see the triumph of Brahminism through the presentation of Durga killing the Asura. In your presentation, you have shown how the face of Rabindranath is being carved on some of the Banam wooden structure. So in this particular respect, I want to, I want to know from you that, like Chou Nach, how it has been Brahminized. I mean, the very practice and performance of the Chou Nach, how it's been Brahminized. Is there any other sign of same sort of a Brahminization of Banam?
Yes, that's true. It's a very uh, clear observation of you. And as you give the instance of Chonas, in everywhere we can find that there is kind of engulfment of the culture or the tribal culture or the local culture. And yes, this is a kind of hegemony. This is a kind of cultural hegemony. And here, when we are, uh, we are have the carvings of Rabindranath Tagore on the Banam. These also shows the hegemony of the dominant culture over this tribal culture. As as you find out, as your observation is very much authentic regarding the concept or the subject matter with Chonaj, in most of the cases that we know the story of Hudur Durga and that kind of people, they are celebrating Durga Puja while actually they are celebrating their destruction, the destruction of the Mahishatur, their ancestor father. So this is how these become a part of cultural hegemony, and they are unknowingly they're performing these type of cultural uh, practices through their lives. As because uh, I think, Jyoti, this is only because they have lack of knowledge about their tradition, about their culture, and I believe always only education can make any people, make any community to be very much aware or conscious about their culture and their traditional beliefs. and this is the only way we should try. And I think it is also our responsible to make such a kind of presentation or talk or the debate or the right books or papers, journals, so that we can influence others people and we can help the other people to act to make them conscious about their own traditional knowledge. As because uh, uh, if you look at the artisans who are performing the Chhou Nach, they are very poor and they have to perform. And to me, it is my personal uh, consideration that I always dislike that the Santali people are coming up to the urban some town or some over the stages. They are performing their culture, and all the people are very much happy to have the Santali dances and the music on the stage of the urban setting. But I think this is very much pathetic as because these kind of people are suffering the kind of hunger and they have to sell their culture, they have to sell their tradition, and they have to please other peoples. But I think we should go there. We should go to the very setting of the Santali culture and have the essence of the Santali dance and the music or any other tribal people or any other communities. They have all their tradition. We should go there. So this is a kind of communization, as you say that. This is the kind of impact of the globalization, impact of the modernization, and obviously impact of the industrialization in our modern India. So these are the things that is very much occurring in our contemporary society. And it is not true for the Santal people. It is not true for all the tribal people, but at the same time, it is very much true for all the cultural people that they are forgetting their own myth, own tradition, own culture. And we are just like a kind of we are addicted a hybrid culture. And that is the main issue. And I think we should all have know our culture and should have the consciousness in that particular tradition and culture. This is, I think, to me, this is the only solution. And education, only education can emancipate all the shackleness of these cultural bondings, all these cultural limitations. To-
Thank you, Palash, for your observation. Then here comes the concept of, Dalitization. Recently you have presented your paper at Assam University, where even in our channel you have presented a paper where you talked about the concept of Dalitization and how this the concept of Dalitization is a foil to the concept of Sanskritization. And you have shown by reading the autobiographical narrative of Dr. Mohish Mondol that how this man is trying to uh, revitalize the concept of Dalitization by debunking or destabilizing the concept of Sanskritization. But when we talk about the concept of marginalization and the very framework known as Ambedkarism, and through this framework, if we try to address the marginalized people and their culture, then like the untouchables or scheduled castes, the culture of the scheduled tribes will also be naturally come into consideration. In this particular respect, when you have seen that sort of a commercialization and the divide between urban and the local and the rural, and at the same time, there's some sort of a Brahminical hegemony, even in the carving on Banam. In this particular respect, when you see that that sort of a hegemony is going on, where tribal people have to sell their own cultural products to make an earning. In this particular aspect, how do you think that the concept of Dalitization or even the concept of Ambedkarization, as we are moving towards it, is necessary to impact among the young generation of tribe?
Uh, yes, Judy. I think the two binary concept, one is Dalitization and another is Sanskritization. And uh, I think Dalitization, that it is not the opposition of Sanskritization, but Dalitization is the humanization. It is the hidden concept of humanization. And the social mobility that the Dalitization proposes. I think this is the only way because Ambedkar, we consider Ambedkar as the maker of our constitution. but we never consider Ambedkar as a philosopher. We never consider Ambedkar as a thinker, as a social thinker, as a social scientist. And that's the problem. And as we find out that this kind of urbanization, this kind of Sanskritization has affected all the tribal, traditional, communal culture. So it is Dalitization is only option that could promote the people, that could promote the culture in its humanistic way. Our journey is about the humanization. The much more human we will be, we can eradicate all kind of uh, discriminations. And yes, that's true that Sanskritization is affecting all the cultures, all the traditional views of different kind of people. And uh, I think now it is the prime time to have the discourse of Ambedkarite philosophy. We should have the discourse of Ambedkar because Ambedkar is never considered as the philosopher or the thinker. So if we read Ambedkar more and more, then we can find how social thinker he was and how he tried to build up a society which is not very caste oriented and which is talking about Dalitization. And the general conception, or rather, I may say that the misconception regarding this term Dalitization, the viewers or the people when they first time heard this term that Dalitization, they always think that Dalitization is the power accession of the Dalit people. No, this is not at all. Dalitization is much more humanitarian. It is the kind of humanization that a person, a human being, as he is a human being, he has a particular existence and he has existence, then he should have the rights. He should have the kind of right to be his existence and he should have a particular space in this universe and he should have the kind of respect from others. This is much more the inner orientation of the term Dalitization. And we should consider the very term Dalitization in this way so that we can establish Ambedkarite discourse so that we can establish such a society which is much more anti-casteist views and we can restore all the traditional myths, all the traditional legendary stories, all the cultures and their particular way of life, whether it is affected by the globalization, urbanization, or industrialization. They can carry on their tradition in their own way. Well, maybe the form will be changed, but there will be a flow of tradition like a river. This is my views about you. Questions are this is my response.
Thank you,
Thank
Palash,
you,
for
John.
your elaborate observations on some of the issues. Because while talking about tribals and the culture, which is more often based on oral tradition, or even there are many scheduled castes who still follow that sort of an oral tradition. In this particular aspect, we see that how their traditional identity and cultural identity rather is being threatened by so many outer factors. So while going through your presentation on this particular musical instrument of the Santali people, it gives me some sort of a sense of cultural roots that we need to search in our rural ecological system rather than going to the urban city. So, as a research scholar, I hope you have a great responsibility, but at the same time, we need to ask scholars from the Santali community, tribal community, to make these presentations, to explore their own culture so that we can have the community member who will speak for themselves. So in this respect, I think the Bahujan Scholars Union and the Bahujan Literature Union can play a very great role. So I would like to thank Paula's for your brilliant presentation, and I hope
Thank you.
such kind of stimulus presentation will go on in our channel. And in this respect, we also request other scholars to make the presentations as well. So in this sense, I think we can conclude our uh, talk tonight. Paulash, can we
Thank
conclude
you.
right?
Yes, you can conclude. Okay, you can
Okay.
conclude.
So, dear viewers, tonight Mr. Palash Biswas has spoken about the culture of Banam in Santali community, and that is a fascinating presentation. In this particular sense, we would like to thank Mr. Palash Biswas and other viewers who joined with us. Stay connected with us for our uh, upcoming programs. And in this sense, I would like to conclude tonight's presentation. Thank you, good night, and Jai Bhim.
Thank you.